Welcome to San Mateo County Today. Conversations with government leaders throughout San Mateo County. Here's your host, Marshall Wilson.
We have a great show for you lined up. First of all, we're going to learn about all things transportation in the city of Redwood City and ways you can participate in helping get their transportation plan in order. And then we're going to meet the man behind the signature seen in 30,000 places across San Mateo County, the head of weights and measures for the county, who's got some great stories to tell and ways to protect you, the consumer. Welcome to San Mateo County Today. I'm your host, Marshall Wilson. I'm joined now by Jessica Manzi, the transportation manager for the city of Redwood City. Jessica, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
So tell me, what does the transportation manager for the city of Redwood City do?
I'm in charge of the planning and design of all of the transportation systems in Redwood City, with the exception of transit. So Samtrans and Caltrain provide regional transit service in Redwood City, but I'm responsible for the streets, the bike lanes, the parking lots, make sure all of those things are there and working.
That has to be a big job, especially now because there's so much traffic, as I'm sure you know. So as a city, you have a transportation plan for your city. What is the city transportation plan for Redwood City?
So right now we've kicked off a citywide transportation plan, and this is really our opportunity to develop a framework for a multimodal transportation system to make sure that it's meeting the needs for residents of Redwood City today and going forward.
What are some of the tenets of that plan that the people who commute, live, work, recreate in Redwood City, what do they see in that plan?
Well, right now we're developing the plan, so they don't see anything yet, but we're looking forward to talking to all of their residents and businesses about what they'd like to see in the plan. But it will be looking at all modes of transportation, whether you're someone that walks, bikes, rides the bus, rides the train, drives, potentially taking the ferry down the road. We want to look at all of the transportation systems within the city to make sure that we're doing what we need to make to keep everybody moving, getting to work, getting to after-school activities safely and efficiently.
Well, I understand there are several projects in that plan that will lead to a more improved traffic flow. Can you tell me something about these projects in Redwood City and what they aim to accomplish?
So outside of, as part of the transportation plan process, we're going to be developing a whole slew of different projects that address the concerns that we've heard from the community through some outreach process. Outside of that effort, we have a lot of plans and projects going on in parallel that in some cases will precede the plan and in some cases will supplement it. So for example, one of the plans that we're working on is an El Camino corridor study, and that's looking at El Camino from end to end in Redwood City to see how it's working today and to make recommendations for how it could be working better in the future. And that's a situation where we're looking, having specific community meetings focused on that topic, and what comes out of that process will likely get folded into the plan to decide how to, when we start talking about how to prioritize improvements. Another project that we're working on is the redesign of the 101-84 interchange. That's a big priority both for Redwood City residents and businesses, as well as for the region. So that project, we just completed the environmental phase for it, and we're starting the design work on the project. And so we're really excited to keep that project moving forward. But we also partner with our regional agencies on regional projects like the Caltrain Modernization Program, the Grand Boulevard Initiative, the Dumbarton Corridor Study, the US 101 Managed Lanes Project. There's a lot going on in the county right now to address everybody's concerns about the level of traffic congestion that they're seeing.
That certainly is a big concern of everyone about traffic. How do you go about competing the different modes of transportation? Say, I know most people drive their cars, so that probably gets a real high priority. But I'm also seeing more and more in Redwood City and elsewhere on the peninsula, people on their bicycles. There's huge demand to ride Caltrain. How do you go about balancing all those competing, well, maybe they're not competing needs, but how do you go about balancing all of those?
A lot of those are a community discussion with understanding within our city what are the priorities that our residents have. What we found over probably the last 50 to 60 years is that the focus has been on making sure that the roads are wide enough and going fast enough for cars. But the result is it's made a pretty intimidating environment for people that might be walking their kids to school, or wanting to ride a bike, on the weekend for some exercise, or to, ride a bike to the store to pick up some groceries. So we're having those conversations with our residents and businesses about those trade-offs, because often there are trade-offs. El Camino, for example, we're not looking at tearing down a row of businesses to make room for a wider street. But then that means you have to make hard decisions about who gets what space. But ultimately what we're trying to do is provide choices for people so that they don't feel like they only have one choice. People should be able to feel safe walking in our community, riding their bikes in our community, as well as driving. So that's ultimately our goal.
I would think that one of the challenges being for Redwood City, but really most of the cities on the peninsula, in that the jobs all tend to be down along the bayfront on the flatland, but the housing is all up in the hills, which makes it very difficult to, say, ride your bike or walk. Is that one of the challenges you face, and what are some of the other challenges you face in trying to put all these different pieces together?
That is a big challenge whenever you're separating people from where they live and where they work. That's an issue, as well as just our topography. We have been working on making the Farm Hill Boulevard a safer corridor for everyone. When we heard some of the community meetings and comments from residents on that, is that the increase in e-bikes has made a big difference there, where there's a woman speaking at the meeting who talked about taking her kids to school because she had an e-bike, and then the trailers with the kids in the back. And so it's not something that you would have ever thought, people riding up Farm Hill Boulevard with kids behind them, but with an e-bike that suddenly becomes possible. So there's some technological innovations that are helping address some of these first mile, last mile challenges that we face. But the other strategy that Redwood City and many other communities have been using is trying to concentrate development into areas that are well served by transit, like downtown. So obviously there's challenges associated with increasing density near transit centers, but also at the same time we see that people that are living downtown aren't driving as much. They're able to walk and bike for trips, where in other locations, if they were living up in the hills, for example, they might be driving to make those trips, where you can walk and bike if you're living downtown and don't have very far to go. So providing opportunities for people to reduce the distance between where they're working and living makes a big difference.
And let's talk about you for a moment. How did you become involved in transportation, and why is this your passion, your chosen career?
Well, I started out studying civil engineering in college, and one of my first jobs was working for a transportation consulting firm. And so it was there where I first was introduced to transportation, and just find it fascinating. In different jobs, I've had the opportunity to work on transit projects, work on bike and pedestrian projects, work in small communities as well as big cities. And I think everybody's dealing with these same issues of how can I live my life safely? How can I get to where I need to go? Ultimately, people aren't usually saying, I want to design my life about, say, being able to ride my bike. They want to design their life around meeting the needs of their family. And transportation is just a way to help them do that. And so I've just always found that very interesting.
Now, what are some of, in the very near future, when it comes to the citywide transportation plan, what are some projects, or what are some steps we're going to see very soon? You said you're looking at getting the public's feedback. How can people reach you or reach the city, or give you their priorities?
So overall, the city's doing a lot to ensure that we're hearing from everybody within our community. So we have an initiative called Join the Conversation. So you can go to Redwood City's website, redwoodcity.org/jointheconversation, and there's a number of different email addresses and opportunities to sign up for different newsletters that the city issues. For the Citywide Transportation Plan, we've got some meetings that are coming up. The Complete Streets Advisory Committee has a meeting on March 14th at 6 o'clock at City Hall, and we'll be starting a conversation about this plan with that group. And happy to include everybody that's interested in that conversation. We will also be holding pop-up events at different places within the community to get feedback from folks that might not normally come to a community meeting, whether it be like a farmer's market or one of the community centers. But we'll also have a strong online presence. So again, a lot of people out there don't have time or the energy to go to a meeting at night. And so we'll have tools on the project website where people can provide input into the process, so that can be incorporated without having to come out to a meeting. So there'll be a map where you can identify, this is a really hard place to cross the street when I'm taking my kids to school, or, this is a really congested intersection, this is where it is, so that all of those issues can be examined as part of the transportation plan. And then as we get through the process of the plan, we'll be coming back to the community saying, these are some of the things that we've heard, and start talking about priorities. In addition to having limited space on any given street, there's a limited pot of money to spend on these different projects. So those are also tough conversations. Do we as a community want to be investing in these $100 million projects that are very impactful, or spending those monies on, thousands of small projects that would have just a different type of benefit? So those are all the conversations that we're expecting to have with our community.
And what is the timeline you're looking at?
So it's actually a very quick process. We're hoping to get this to the City Council at the end of the year.
That would be a quick process as far as planning goes. It's very complicated.
Yeah.
We have got about 30 seconds left. Any final thoughts or ideas you'd like to share?
I really just encourage everybody to participate in the process, as well as all the projects that are going on in Redwood City. Through our website and community meetings, the plans really depend on the input we get from our residents and community members.
I guess that's something that is really just driven by the community. The people who get out there are going to be heard.
Exactly.
All right, Jessica, thank you for joining us.
Great, thank you, Marshall.